Yo, what up, guys? So, the Lazy Peon did a review of DC Universe Online a few days ago, and basically, he's just somebody who plays MMOs, and he loves MMOs, and he's always doing reviews of all kinds of fucking MMOs, and he did one of DC Universe, so I watched it, and I figured I'd go ahead and do like a response, I guess, or my thoughts on his review, and we'll kind of see how the fuck it goes. But let's get right into it. Here we go. And he's going to talk about the pros first, and he's going to talk about the cons. So what he liked and what he didn't like.
First we're going to talk about the pros, then we're going to talk about the cons, the good things and the bad things. Right off the bat, the intro cinematic makes sense and puts things into context, even for people that aren't familiar with the DC universe, such as myself. This really helped, as I was worried I was going to go into this game and not have a clue what was going on. Sure, I know the main characters like Batman, Superman, the Joker, but there's a lot of them that I didn't really know of.
So he's talking about the intro cinematic, which the reason he likes the intro cinematic is just because he feels like it sets the story for like new players and shit like that. Gives you an idea of how the game is going to be played, or what you can expect to find inside this game when you do play it. And I'm not going to lie, the intro cinematic was always a badass part of DC Universe. I don't think there's anybody who actually hated that intro.
And it doesn't really matter. The superhero creation is fantastic and it really impressed me. There's so many different combinations of abilities and skins and stuff that you can have that it really makes the idea of leveling another character and alt not seem that bad. It feels like the game could have a decent amount of replayability.
Alright, so he's talking about how he thinks that the character creation in DC Universe is very good, which I don't agree with. I mean, I don't play a lot of other MMOs, but I've seen MMOs where character creation, you can do all kinds of little shit to your character and really create it the way that you want. And with DC Universe, you pretty much just pick a fucking power, your weapon, your faction, which you only have a choice of 2, and then you just start the fucking game. There's not much else you do to your character. You pick big or small, and you get the fuck moving.
Due to the way the movement and combat works, the game feels really fast-paced, especially in dungeons. I like this.
So he says the game feels very fast-paced, which is true, so I agree with him. I mean, as soon as you start off the game, you're put into the Brainiac ship, and you run through like a tutorial, and then as soon as you're done with that, you get missions back to back. So you're always fighting, and the combat system obviously is one of my favorite parts of the game. But
the action combat system of this game really impressed me and works well. I was really surprised how good it was, considering it was released in 2011 and action combat wasn't really a huge thing back then.
And he talks about the combat system and how it feels fun, and it is, like I said, it's one of my favorite things about this game.
It's just fun flying, jumping, wall running, and using your character's movement abilities to get around the city. The questing becomes interesting when you get to fight well-known villains from the franchise. You'll start off with a few small missions to learn of their whereabouts, then you'll go in and kick their ass, dealing with some interesting mechanics for each encounter.
Moving around the zones is fun. It's nice to be able to just do whatever the fuck you want, fly wherever the fuck you want, jump wherever you want. So he talks about how questing with other villains, or in his case, because he was a hero and he was fighting villains, that's what he's referring to. But yeah, I mean, the whole fucking game is DC comic based, so you're gonna be fighting heroes or villains, and for players who are DC Universe fans or DC comic fans, just the idea of playing a fucking comic game is gonna be fun. So
DC Universe Online has a fantastic transmog system where it saves every single piece of armor that you've ever had. Starting the game, you quickly gain new abilities to keep things interesting, and you can really feel the game becoming a lot more fun as you level up.
So as far as the transmog system, which I don't even know what the fuck that means, but from what he said, I guess it's just a way of keeping track of the gear that you get throughout the game. DC Universe does do a good job of making sure the styles from the pieces that you equipped. You can always go back and change up how you look later with those styles. It saves them for you automatically. So
there's a lot of content to catch up on if you're a new player in terms of PvE and PvP, and it's all accessible via a group finder, which feels really familiar if you've played any other MMO.
So he talks about there being decent amount of content compared to other MMOs, and I've never actually played other MMOs, so I would love to take his word for it, but I don't think there's a lot of content in DC Universe. I mean, up until recently, where they started giving us new shit every month, they were giving it to us every quarter, if that. So maybe this review, based from a new player's perspective, could be accurate, but even then, he's only played this game for a little while, so he doesn't even know about the content coming out every month. He's just basing it off the content that's already in the game, and I can tell you that still, for players who have been playing it for a long time, it just doesn't seem like there's still a lot of fucking content, new shit, especially on the PvP side, which he mentioned. So
actually getting to fight alongside well-known heroes and villains from the DC universe feels really cool. Fans of DC will love this game.
So he talks about fighting with famous superheroes, and how that's awesome. And like I said before, that's going to be fun for anybody who likes DC Comics or any comics. So
the game runs really smoothly once you've disabled VSync, and I'm pretty sure this will run really well on low-end PCs.
So he talks about how the game runs very smooth and requires low system specs, but I don't have a, very high-end PC. I just have like a mediocre PC and it runs fine, so I guess that's true. I guess that's a pro.
It feels open world. It's not a heavily instanced MMO like we see a lot of nowadays. This makes exploration feel fun and worthwhile.
It's open world, he says, not heavily instanced. So they're not trying to, or you don't have to just run through raids and shit like that constantly. But like I said, he's new, and it is open world, so that is a great fucking thing. But it is actually heavily instanced because you don't actually get shit done. If you want to progress in this game, you have to run through fucking instances, and that's just the bottom fucking line. Alright, so for the most part, I would say his list of pros are not too far off from accurate. He's probably only played the game over the course of a few days, but he's about to say some shit that is definitely not accurate, and here he goes.
For a free-to-play game, it doesn't try and shove microtransactions down your throat. It seems like it has a pretty fair business model, and from the research I've done, it doesn't seem to be pay to win.
So this is definitely a pay-to-win game. I don't even know if you would say that. It's just a pay-to-get-fucked over game, basically. And they definitely spam you with shit in the marketplace. That's pretty much how they are making their money in this game, which is the whole reason why they went free-to-play before the game was even out for a full year, is because they realized nobody was subscribing. They had nobody actually paying a monthly fee every month, so they came up with some brilliant idea to just go free to play and just throw a bunch of bullshit on a marketplace and offer people the opportunity to buy that shit, and people do. So this game, it is definitely pay to win or pay to get fucked over, and they do spam you with the stupidest shit. I mean, they even have windows, for fuck's sake, every time you try to do something, that pop up and say, if you want more bank slots, or you want this, or you want that, go to the marketplace and buy more, you bitch. So it's definitely a fuck you over style MMO. But let's go to his cons and see what he's come to conclude there.
So now we're going to talk about the cons. This game has very limited options in terms of graphics. There's no windowed borderless mode, and apparently that's due to an issue with the game's engine not supporting it for some reason. And by default, VSync is enabled, which will lock your FPS to 30. Disable this straight away. The UI isn't very good, and it's not very customizable. I tried to find a way of making it a little bit smaller in terms of scale, but I couldn't see any options that would allow me to do that, and I tried to look online, and again, no answers there. So
Alright, so his first con and his second con I feel like are kind of the same, so I'll just go over them together. He says that it's very poor options with the graphics and no windowed borderless option. And there isn't a bordered or a windowed borderless option, unfortunately. And then he goes on to say that it's not a great UI, which is true. The UI is fucking garbage, and they've been saying that they were gonna make a new UI before the PS4 even came out, and we still haven't seen that shit, and we probably never will. But you know, you can't customize it any way you want. You can't even make the fucking UI smaller. You can make like the text windows smaller or bigger, but you can't actually make the UI smaller or to your liking. So that's true.
The community of DCU Online is known for being really toxic, and throughout my playing I saw lots of arguments in chat. It just made me not really want to ask questions as a new player.
So this shit is too funny. He says that the community is very toxic, and he says that in the chat windows, I still can't get over this, but when he's playing and he's looking at text in the chat window, it's all a bunch of people fucking arguing, and he says he didn't even want to ask questions. That's how fucking bad it was. And, and that is the fucking truth, man. DC Universe, the community there, they don't give a fuck. You know, it's like survival of the fittest. I feel like they're all just trying to survive. And that's what the fucking community's like, man. No matter what server you're on.
Sometimes you'll come across quests which will ask you to go to a certain location. However, that location will not be marked on the map. This means you either need to go for a tedious search to find it or look online for the location. I really think the quest tracking needs a lot of work.
And then he says that quest tracking needs improving. And he says that when he clicks on a mission, it doesn't actually tell him where the fuck to go, like on the minimap. Which I don't know what problem he was having, but anytime I've ever clicked on a mission in my journal and activated it, it's always shown me on the minimap where the fuck to go. So I don't know what issue that was, but we'll move on.
In dungeons, you can be grouped with high-level players that will just one-shot everything and carry the group. Their level isn't scaled down and your level isn't scaled up. It kind of feels like cheating because you're beating content with absolutely no challenge. It kind of reminds me of being boosted for a dungeon by a friend in WoW, but DCU's group finder actually allows for this? It's fucking weird.
Alright, so he's mad that there's no level scaling in dungeons, and he says that it automatically groups you with high levels. So if you're like a level 10 and you queue up for some shit, you can get thrown in there with a level 30 and he'll just carry you through it. Which, I don't know how that's a fucking con. That is like a dream come true for people. And I don't really know what the fuck issue he has with that. If he wanted to play the game and enjoy every moment of it, maybe he should have bought the fucking game when it first came out, because we're beyond those days now. Now you just get to level 30 as quick as you fucking can and get shit done.
You can access PvP at level 10, however you'll get absolutely stomped by high level players that will kill you in less than a second. There doesn't seem to be separate PvP brackets based on level, and there seems to be absolutely no scaling technology implemented whatsoever to keep things balanced. Really didn't enjoy the PvP, was really disappointed with that because most games seem to have some kind of PvP scaling tech. It's not very...
Alright, so his next con is that there's no level scaling in PvP. He says you'll get one shot as a new player, and I'm not really sure what the fuck he's talking about. You know, every time I go into PvP, my stats are boosted, and I don't know if he's referring to open world type of shit, but there's a PvE and a PvP side, and you can stay safe on the PvE side. So maybe he didn't play this game enough. Like I said, he's probably only played over the past few days, and you know, I'm kind of shocked that he didn't mention the fact that there's a PvE and a PvP side for players who would like to do one or the other. So, oh well.
Good looking MMO, and this will probably put off a lot of players that are really into their graphics. However, to be fair, the game was released in 2011, and it still looks better than quite a few newer MMOs that I've tried recently.
Alright, so he goes on to say that the graphics aren't great, and it might put off people with high-end PCs. And you know, the bottom line is graphics don't make a fucking game anyway. but I'm not gonna lie, I mean the graphics could be better, but you know, that is what it is. That's all I have to say about that.
Overall, DC Universe Online seems like a fairly decent game. When I first arrived in Gotham, I wasn't having an amazing time with the initial few quests, but as I gained more abilities and started fighting recognisable villains, the game started to become a lot more enjoyable, fun and compelling. I'm not really too sure if this is the game for me because I'm not really a huge superhero fan. And to be honest, the game's still missing quite a few things which I really think it should have, and it kind of annoys me, such as windowed borderless mode, first person view, scalable UI and level scaling. Regardless...
Alright, so then he goes on to conclude that basically it's a pretty decent game overall. He would recommend it for people who actually like DC Comics, but he said he wouldn't actually spend a lot of time on it himself. And, you know, I can't say that he's right or wrong. I mean, there were some things I feel like he was wrong about, like the fucking pay to win. This is definitely one of those games where, you know, this game isn't free to play because it's fair. This game is free to play because if you have money, you can be a fucking top dog in this fucking game. So, you know, that's really the bottom line. And like I said, he's probably only played this game over the course of a few days, I would imagine, because he really didn't go into any kind of like specifics and shit about like leagues and the features you have when you're in a fucking league, or, you know, like I said before, the difference between the PvE side and the PvP side. He only played the hero side, which is why his comments on everything were, you know, I don't know if you want to say one-sided, but he was always referring to the opposite faction, or, you know, when he was killing bosses, them being villains. But obviously if you're a villain, you're gonna be killing fucking heroes and shit like that. So I mean, his review I would say is alright. You know, I'm kind of only reviewing his shit because I like DC Universe, and if more people knew about the game, then I feel like more people would play it. And, you know, this is one of those games that I don't want to fucking die, guys. I really love it, baby.